You can't leave him here. This is a corporate building, not a clinic. The man in the tailored navy suit didn't lower his voice. He gestured toward the boy slumped beside Lena's cart, like he was a trash bag she forgot to empty. Lena didn't blink. "He's not going anywhere," she said calmly, her eyes never leaving the boy's pale face. "But you will, if you keep shouting like that." He froze. For a janitor, she didn't sound like someone waiting for permission. That was the moment everything started unraveling, when the single mom janitor took in a homeless boy, not knowing he was the billionaire CEO's son. Sometimes the ones you overlook are the only ones who know what to do when everything fails. Subscribe now. This isn't just a rescue story. It's a reckoning. "He's a liability," the man muttered, stepping back. "You don't even know who he is." Lena glanced down at the boy. "Neither do you." They always assumed janitors came without pasts, without choices, without stories. They never asked why someone like her, mid-30s, posture too precise for the job, eyes that missed nothing, worked overnight shifts, scrubbing grout with surgical precision. She didn't end up here by mistake. She chose this job because grief makes you crave silence, and mopping floors let her disappear, until the boy collapsed into her cart. He'd stumbled in just before sunrise, coat hanging off his bones, mud crusted on torn sneakers, one cheek already bruising purple. He wasn't crying. That's what made her pause. He looked like he'd already done the worst of it. When he dropped to his knees and slid sideways against the mop bucket, Lena caught him before his head hit tile. No ID, no phone, no words, just a body giving up. And Lena knew that feeling too well. Where are you watching from? Because this isn't just about a janitor who helped a kid. It's about the war that begins when the CEO finds out who that kid is and underestimates the woman who saved him. He was still unconscious. Lena had moved him to the break room, against protocol, but she wasn't about to wait for security to process paperwork while he shivered on the floor. She wrapped her hoodie around his shoulders, then rummaged through the snack drawer for sugar packets and stale protein bars. He needed warmth and calories. His skin was clammy, pupils tight, pulse erratic but holding. She'd seen this before, at field camp years ago. Kids who came in from the cold, not drunk, not high, just starved, both ways, body and soul. "I need him logged as a medical," she muttered, reading his vitals by instinct. She poured warm water from the kettle into a thermos and added honey. Her fingers trembled just once. The door creaked behind her. A lanky temp in a company windbreaker stepped inside. "Security called the police. They said he trespassed. He's a child." "Doesn't matter," they said. "They don't get to say. I'm logging it as a first aid response under Emergency Clause B-17. The temp blinked. "That's real." Lena pointed to the faded OSHA poster on the wall with her name on the emergency cert line. "Real enough." The kid stirred. Lena crouched beside him, held the thermos to his lips. He took a sip, then whispered, "Eli." It was the only word he gave her. She committed it to memory. Upstairs, Julian Stratton walked into his building like he owned the marble. Because he did. The CEO of Stratton Technologies wasn't used to delays, especially not when his own PR team was trying to contain a headline that hadn't broken yet. Missing air, no leads. His assistant, Nadia, kept pace. "Security report from this morning. One of the janitors brought someone into the lounge." "Fire her," Julian snapped, skimming headlines on his phone. "She's still there." "Then drag her out." Lena watched the color return to Eli's cheeks. His breathing steadied. The hallway outside echoed. Footsteps. Heavy. Fast. No nonsense. 3 security guards. And behind them, Julian Stratton himself, She stayed seated on the floor beside the boy. "You the one who brought him in?" Julian asked. She didn't answer. He took a step closer. "That's my son." Lena looked up slowly. "Then you should have found him first." Julian froze. The security team behind him shifted slightly, unsure if they were still supposed to be threatening the janitor kneeling beside the unconscious boy, or if something else had just shifted entirely. Lena didn't move. One hand was still resting gently on Eli's shoulder, keeping him grounded, calm, warm. She didn't care who the man glaring at her was. The boy mattered. His life, not his lineage. "I said," Julian repeated, his voice low now, "he's my son. I heard you." She didn't say anything else. For a few stretched seconds, all you could hear was the hum of the vending machine in the corner and the quiet, rhythmic breathing of the boy Julian claimed to care about. He stepped forward again, but this time, he looked at the boy, not her. His face flickered, just for a moment. A muscle twitched near his jaw. His voice changed. "Eli." The name cracked a little coming out. The boy didn't respond. "He said that name earlier," Lena murmured. "Only thing he gave me." Julian's eyes darted to her. What happened? He was already halfway to collapse when he got inside. Cold, dehydrated, possible hypoglycemia. One ankle's twisted, minor, but untreated. "I stabilized him." "You what?" Lena stood slowly, brushing her hands on her uniform. "Stabilized him." She didn't elaborate, didn't offer credentials, didn't need to. "Not yet." Julian blinked. "Why didn't you call an ambulance?" "I did." Security intercepted the call. "You're lying." "You can pull the call log from the service phone." Her tone never changed. Still calm, still flat, still too composed for a janitor caught in the middle of a PR disaster. Nadia appeared behind Julian. She looked at Lena, then at the boy, and her expression changed. "I'll call the ambulance myself," Nadia said softly, already pulling out her phone. "We need medical documentation of condition on arrival." Legal's going to need a paper trail. Julian didn't argue. He was still staring at his son like he hadn't expected to see him again, and definitely not like this. Lena moved to the side without being asked. Not out of deference, out of priority. The boy needed a doctor, not a fight. But before she left the room, she paused beside the garbage can and peeled off her gloves. She noticed Julian watching her fingers. Hands steady, nails trimmed, knuckles scarred, just enough to suggest she'd worked with more than mops before. "Why would a janitor know how to stabilize a crash?" he asked. Lena looked at him then. Not coldly, not cruelly, just level. "Because I didn't always mop floors." And then she walked out of the room. The break room was quiet again, except for the buzz of fluorescent lights and the soft click of Nadia ending her call. 10 minutes, she said. Paramedics en route. Julian nodded absently, crouching beside his son. His fingers hovered an inch above Eli's hand, but never touched. He was gone for 3 days, Julian said, more to himself than anyone else. No ransom, no calls, no posts. My entire team couldn't find a whisper. "He found her," Nadia said, not unkindly. Julian's jaw tensed. Down the hall, Lena leaned against the supply closet door and exhaled for the first time all morning. Her arms trembled now, the weight of adrenaline crashing down. Her hoodie was gone, still wrapped around Eli. She didn't need it back. Footsteps approached. Not loud, not aggressive, just there. Nadia stopped a few feet away. "They'll want your report." "I'm not writing one," Lena said. "They'll ask." "They can ask." Nadia looked at her for a moment. Really looked. "You weren't just guessing back there." "No." "Are you going to tell him?" Lena shook her head. "He's not the type to believe it until he sees it." Nadia's eyes flicked toward the break room. "He might already be seeing it." Lena didn't respond. Instead, she reached into the pocket of her cleaning apron and pulled out a folded napkin with something scrawled on it. Medical shorthand, vitals, response times, notes taken without fanfare. "Give this to the medics," she said. "It'll speed things up." Nadia took it gently. "You always write trauma notes on break room napkins?" "I improvise." Back in the lobby, the paramedics arrived fast. Too fast. They'd clearly been told who the patient was. They swept in with a stretcher, a monitor cart, and practiced professionalism. But one of them, tall, salt and pepper hair, paused as he read the notes handed to him by Nadia. "Who wrote this?" he asked. Julian turned to look. Nadia glanced down the hallway. "The janitor." The paramedic blinked. "That's textbook pre-hospital triage. Whoever wrote this isn't a janitor." Julian's eyes narrowed. The paramedic continued reading as they began preparing Eli for transfer. He shook his head slowly, impressed. Vitals were taken within 2 minutes. IV angle described. Sugar correction timed. "We couldn't have done better." Julian didn't say anything. But in that moment, something in his posture changed, like the first crack in a concrete wall. Julian watched as his son was loaded into the ambulance, but his mind wasn't on the boy anymore. Not entirely. He kept replaying the medic's words. "Whoever wrote this isn't a janitor." The phrase wouldn't leave him. It was a burr under his collar, catching every time he tried to focus on logistics, on control. He was used to knowing what people were, what they cost, what they were worth. He could read a resume in 10 seconds and tell you where the person would break. But this woman, Lena, she hadn't broken at all. She had deflected his authority without flinching, challenged him without showing disrespect. She didn't posture, didn't gloat, didn't explain. And now someone with actual credentials was saying she had more skill than anyone expected. It wasn't just irritating, it was unsettling. Nadia caught up with Lena in the stairwell landing. The elevator was broken. Again, and Lena didn't mind the climb. She always took the stairs. The noise here was different. Distant echoes from above and below. Cold concrete. No judgment. "He's on his way," Nadia said, pulling the door shut behind her. Lena nodded. "Good. He'll be okay, they think. That's not up to me anymore. You stabilized him." They said it made the difference. Lena didn't look proud. She looked still. "He'll be fine," she said softly. "He's stronger than he looks." Nadia stepped closer, crossing her arms. "Julian's asking questions." "I'm sure he is. About you." That got a faint smile. "Of course. Can I ask something?" "You already are. Were you military?" Lena's jaw tightened just slightly. "That obvious?" Nadia shrugged. "You didn't panic. Not for a second. And you didn't touch your face or repeat yourself when he collapsed. Most people flail. You ran a checklist." There was a pause. Then Lena answered. "Field medic. Forward surgical teams. Later trauma unit rotation at St. Clair's before I left." "Why'd you leave?" Lena looked away. "That's not for him to know." "Not yet. I didn't ask for him." Another silence. This one gentler. Lena sat on the cold metal step and rested her elbows on her knees. "My son died 3 years ago. Seizure while home alone. The ambulance didn't get there in time. They told me if someone had known how to stabilize him, even just sugar levels." She swallowed. "I walked off the job the next day. Never stepped into another ER." Nadia didn't speak. "I still see him sometimes," Lena added, "in kids like Eli." Nadia sat beside her. "Does Julian know any of this?" "No." Lena stood. "And he won't hear it from me." Julian's office was floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking the city like it was a chessboard. His desk was mahogany. His mood was ice. The HR director sat uncomfortably across from him, sweating into a suit that didn't quite fit. Sir, the issue is, if she provided unauthorized medical care— Unauthorized? Julian interrupted. The man blinked. I just mean, not logged, not cleared. She saved my son's life. Yes, but from a liability standpoint? I don't care about the liability standpoint. The room went silent. Julian stood slowly, walking to the edge of the glass wall. Do you know her name? I believe it's Marlowe. Lena Marlowe. Find out how long she's been here. Since last year. Contracted through DynaClean Services. Pull her file. She's not technically a full-time employee of Stratton Technologies. Julian turned. Then maybe we fix that. The HR director blinked. Sir, find out what else she knows. What else she's hiding. Down in the janitorial storage room, Lena sat on a stool she'd made out of an overturned mop bucket and 2 old milk crates. She was tying plastic bags into knots, habit more than necessity, when a knock came at the open door. Not a voice, just a knock. She looked up to see a teenager in a Stratton polo shirt, a facilities intern. He looked nervous. Hey, you're Lena, right? She nodded. I just wanted to say thanks. For earlier. For helping that kid? Lena gave a small nod. You saw? Security footage catches part of the lobby. A few of us saw the stream before they shut it down. You were fast. Like scary fast. She said nothing. I told my dad. He's a paramedic. Showed him the napkin notes. He said whoever wrote that probably trained him. That one made Lena's eyebrows lift. Just slightly. The kid grinned. Anyway, I thought it was badass. He left. Lena stared at the open door for a long time before going back to tying knots. Julian sat alone in his office that night. Everyone else had gone. The silence felt heavier than usual. He flipped through Lena's file. Sparse. No employment history before the cleaning agency. No certifications listed. No education. No social media. No digital footprint at all, really. But the handwriting on the napkin. The field terminology. The way she'd handled Eli. People didn't just fake that. And if she had walked away from something that precise, it wasn't because she failed. It was because someone failed her. He looked down at the name on the folder again. Marlowe. Lena. Then he reached for his phone. Julian didn't call her. He drafted the message 3 times, once as a command, once as an invitation, and once as a vague acknowledgement, but deleted them all. Nothing sounded right. Or maybe nothing sounded powerful enough. The truth was, he didn't know how to talk to someone who clearly didn't care what he thought. Instead, he set the file down and did what he hated most. He waited. Lena arrived early the next morning, as usual. Her shift technically began at 6, but she was often there by 5:30. Fewer people. Less noise. The lobby was silent when she stepped through the glass doors, except for the whirring of the revolving entrance and the faint click of her work boots on tile. Her cart waited in the corner, bucket already filled, mop leaned against the side, gloves folded neatly. Routine. But something was different. A vase of fresh orchids had been placed on the reception desk. Too elegant, too deliberate for a corporate lobby. Next to it sat a small envelope with her name on it. Just her first name. She didn't touch it. Instead, she picked up the mop and got to work. Upstairs, Julian watched her through the security feed. No hesitation. No curiosity. Not even a glance at the cameras. She moved through her duties like she was conducting a silent orchestra. Measured, efficient, invisible. He turned the volume down. "Sir?" said Nadia, entering quietly. "He's asking for her." Julian looked away from the monitor. "Eli?" Nadia nodded. "He's awake." Not speaking much, but he remembered the hoodie. Asked if the floor lady was a nurse. Julian raised an eyebrow. The floor lady? He meant it respectfully. Julian leaned back. He's at St. Augustine? Private suite. Monitored. He's recovering well. He tapped a pen against his desk. And her file? Still blank. But I made a call to St. Clair's. Quietly. And there's no record of her resignation. She just vanished. But her name shows up on 3 case files. Pediatric trauma team. Commendation sealed due to a minor's identity. Julian nodded once. I want to offer her a contract, he said. Nadia hesitated. She's not asking for one. That's why she's worth hiring. Lena was scrubbing the grout near the executive elevator when a woman in a pantsuit approached. Not security, not staff. The woman didn't smile. Miss Marlowe. Lena stood slowly. Depends who's asking. The woman offered a business card. Emily Reese, legal counsel, Stratton Technologies. Lena didn't take it. She nodded at the gloves on her hands. Emily slipped the card back into her coat. Mr. Stratton would like to meet. Today? About? You'll have to ask him. Lena tilted her head. If he has something to say, he knows where I work. It's a private floor. Lena turned back toward the grout. Then he knows how to get down here. An hour later, the private elevator opened. The CEO stepped out, alone. Lena didn't stop mopping. He waited. She didn't look up. You didn't read the note, he said finally. Didn't need to. He stepped closer. It wasn't an apology. I figured. He paused. It was a job offer. Lena set the mop aside, finally turning toward him. I already have a job. This would pay more. That's not why I took the one I have. I know. Another silence passed. He wasn't used to silences being held against him. Julian gestured toward the cart. You don't belong here. I disagree. You saved my son. I didn't do it for you. I know that too. He exhaled through his nose, frustration mixing with respect. I want to offer you a position. Officially. Medical consultant. Internal emergency response. I'm not interested in being used for PR. That's not what this is. You sure? Julian's jaw flexed. I need someone like you on staff. No. You need someone you can't control. That's what's bothering you. He didn't deny it. Lena stepped forward, gloves off now, wiping her hands on a rag. You want my help, Julian? She said, voice steady. Then don't hire me. Don't buy me. Just listen. To what? Your son didn't need a consultant. He needed someone who saw him, who didn't treat him like a risk report or a reputation problem. Julian's mouth tightened. And maybe, she added, so do you. She walked past him without waiting for permission. He didn't turn around until she disappeared around the corner. Later that afternoon, Nadia entered Julian's office with a small box. She returned the flowers, Nadia said. Didn't open the card. Julian took the box and opened it. Inside was a folded hoodie, Eli's, freshly washed. On top was a single note, scribbled on hospital stationery. He's strong. Don't make him prove it alone next time. Julian closed the lid. Downstairs, Lena clocked out of her shift and stepped into the cool evening air. She didn't look back at the building, but she knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Lena's apartment was small but clean. No clutter, no decorations, except a few photos that stayed exactly where she left them. Mostly because she never touched them anymore. She hung her uniform over the back of the chair, pulled her hair into a loose knot, and moved through the kitchen without turning on the light. Old habits, dim light, silence. The news played faintly from the neighbor's TV through the wall. Something about city congestion and school board infighting. She tuned it out. Instead, she went to the drawer beside the sink, opened it, and pulled out a black leather wallet the size of her palm. She laid it on the table and sat down. Inside was a faded photo. Her and Ben, her son, standing in the sun outside a fire station, open house. His front teeth were missing. He was holding the badge she let him clip to his little belt loop, pretending to be a paramedic like her. Tucked behind the photo was that same badge, worn, scratched, but still intact. She touched it, not like someone remembering glory, but like someone reminding herself why she walked away from it, and why she might have to walk back in. 2 days later, Julian stood at Eli's hospital bedside. His son looked better. Color was returning. His eyes stayed open longer. The medical team had removed most of the monitoring cables, but the distance hadn't left. Julian cleared his throat. "You're not in trouble." Eli didn't respond. "I mean it. I'm not mad. I want to know why." Eli stared at the ceiling. Julian sat down in the chair beside him. "Was it something I did?" Still nothing. Julian shifted forward. "Was it the school? The interviews? The press?" Finally, Eli whispered, "It was everything." Julian sat back slowly. "Okay." The silence between them wasn't angry, just tired. After a moment, Eli added, "She didn't ask who I was." Julian blinked. "Lena?" Eli nodded. "Everyone else did, or stared, or acted weird." Julian rubbed the back of his neck. "She asked what I needed, not what I did." Julian looked at his son. "Do you know what she used to do?" Eli shook his head. "She was a trauma medic. Maybe military. Maybe more. We're still figuring that out." Eli's eyebrows lifted. "Wait, seriously?" "She walked away from it all." "Why?" Julian looked away. "I think she lost someone." Eli turned his head, eyes suddenly sharper. "Who?" Julian exhaled. "I don't know." Back at Stratton Technologies, the HR director was trying to clean up the mess left by Julian's public silence. Emails had begun circulating, anonymous ones, about the CEO's son, about the janitor, who wasn't just a janitor, about how Stratton Security had blocked a 911 call, about how the paramedics praised the mop lady more than the medical team on salary. It was spreading, and it was being believed, because too many people had seen the look on Julian Stratton's face when he left the break room that morning, like someone who'd just been outmaneuvered by a ghost. Lena didn't answer the call when it came through, but she checked the voicemail. Julian recorded. "You don't have to respond. I'm not asking you to come in. I just thought you'd want to know. Your name's getting passed around. Someone leaked the footage. I've got legal burying it. But it won't hold." Pause. "Julian, I'm not calling to warn you. I'm calling to ask if you're okay with it." Another pause. "Julian, you're not invisible anymore, and I don't think you ever were." Click. She didn't delete the message. She didn't return it, either. The next day, Lena received a letter, handwritten, not typed. No logo, no return address, just one line. "I want to know who trained you, and I want to know why you stopped." She didn't need to guess who sent it. What surprised her was that he didn't ask her to come back, just to explain. That night, Lena opened the old photo wallet again. She pulled out the field badge and stared at it in the low kitchen light. She remembered the girl in that picture. Stern-eyed, fast-handed, never hesitant. The one who could clear a 2-car pile-up trauma rotation in 27 minutes and still remember each kid's name. She wasn't sure that girl was still alive, but she was starting to think. Maybe she hadn't buried her as deep as she thought. She slid the badge into her back pocket, just in case. At Stratton HQ, Nadia watched as Julian walked past the executive boardroom without a word. "He's meeting with PR now?" the communications director asked. "No," Nadia said. "He canceled it." "Again?" "He's making room for something else." The director tilted her head. "What?" Nadia glanced down at her inbox. A new file was open. Unnamed, untagged, but the title field simply read, "Emergency Response Integration Proposal, Draft 0." Nadia smiled faintly. Maybe someone worth listening to. The fire alarm went off at 8:17 a.m. Not a drill, not scheduled. A sharp, jarring blare that cut through the hum of Stratton Technologies like a razor across silk. On the 21st floor, an espresso machine overloaded and short-circuited. Sparks caught on a stack of laminated marketing boards. Thin smoke poured toward the ceiling tiles. And Stratton's executive staff, trained for numbers, not disasters, reacted just how you'd expect. With chaos. Lena was cleaning the elevators when the alarm began. She didn't flinch. While others jumped or fumbled for their phones, she wiped her gloves on a rag, secured her cart, and moved with precision toward the stairwell. Not running, not rushing, but with the calm that only comes from having seen worse. "Fire!" someone shouted. She didn't reply. She didn't ask who or where. She just moved. On the 12th floor, a group of interns had bottlenecked near the emergency exit, frozen by the automatic fire door that had jammed halfway. The stairwell sign blinked red. Lena reached them in seconds. "Move back," she said, loud and clear. "Give me space." A boy in a headset protested. "We can't open it. Security has to override." Lena was already at the door. She bent, examined the mechanism, found the release latch bolted into the wall frame. She grabbed the fire extinguisher from the hall bracket and smashed the latch once, twice, then pulled the door free with both hands and kicked the brace into place. "Go!" Now nobody argued. They ran past her in a blur of lanyards and panic. One girl muttered, "Who is she?" Upstairs, Julian and two board members stood inside a glass-walled conference room, staring through the smoke-hazed hallway as overhead, sprinklers kicked in. The scent of burning plastic was already curling under the doors. "Should we evacuate?" one of them asked, clutching a leather folder like it would shield him. Julian didn't answer. He was watching the screens lining the hallway, watching security footage flip through floor feeds. He spotted her on the 12th, mopping uniform, calm, already guiding people out. He watched her rip open a jammed door and point someone toward the east stairwell with the kind of authority you couldn't fake. "Don't evacuate," Julian said. "Excuse me? She's clearing it." On the 6th floor, a woman was coughing hard near the vending machine, clutching her chest, hunched over. Lena spotted her from halfway down the corridor. The smoke had drifted down, thinner but still dangerous. She crouched fast, checked pulse, eyes, skin tone. "Can you speak?" A nod. "Are you asthmatic?" Another nod. Lena turned to a nearby janitor closet, ripped the supply cabinet open. She found a half-used inhaler inside a plastic bin, marked Donations, HR Overflow. Probably forgotten, probably expired. She didn't hesitate. She returned, used her scarf to shield the woman's face, guided her breath with quiet, sharp instructions. "Slow. Focus. Inhale with me. 1, 2, 3. By the time security arrived with a med tech, the woman was sitting up, sweating, still coughing, but breathing. The med tech knelt down, blinking at her. "You stabilized her." Lena nodded. He looked at the inhaler, then at her. "That protocol's field standard." Lena just said, "She'll need a hospital check for smoke intake." The tech glanced back as Lena stood and walked off toward the next stairwell, already 2 steps ahead. Julian was waiting for her at the ground-level exit. His tie was gone. Shirt sleeves rolled. He didn't speak when she appeared from the stairwell. She was flushed but steady. Hairline damp. One knee of her pants torn from kneeling on the tile. People were streaming past them. Employees, HR reps, executives. Some murmuring her name like a rumor finally confirmed. Lena noticed him. Didn't break stride. He stepped in front of her. "You ran 4 floors." She nodded once. "You forced the stairwell door, coordinated 2 floors, and stabilize someone with respiratory trauma. I did what anyone trained would do. He looked at her, quiet, then asked, "You're not just trained, are you?" Lena's voice didn't waver. "I'm not interested in being something for you to brand, Julian." He smiled faintly, more self-deprecating than smug. "I'm not here to brand you. I'm here because you proved something no one on payroll could." She said nothing. "I want your help building something permanent, not for show, not for optics. Real emergency protocol, staff training, floor readiness, not consultants, people who do the work. You'd lead it." Lena watched the employees around them. Some still shaken, some whispering, and one young man, an intern, pointed directly at her and said, "That's the woman who opened the door. She saved us." She turned back to Julian. "Why now?" she asked. He met her gaze. "Because every system I built broke this morning. Except you." That night, back in her apartment, Lena sat at her table again. The badge was still in her back pocket. She set it on the table, beside the folded hoodie she hadn't returned yet. She didn't need to, because Eli had a father now, who looked like he might finally start showing up. She reached for a pen. She wrote one line on the back of her son's old photo. Then she placed it under the badge. "If I'm going to walk back in, it'll be for the right reasons." 3 days later, Julian stood alone in the glass conference room, reviewing the proposal Lena had submitted. It wasn't typed. It wasn't polished. It was handwritten in block letters on graph paper. Every section marked clearly. Personnel preparedness, fire routing, medical protocols, psychological triage, crisis chain of command. There were no flourishes, no jargon, but it read like doctrine. He hadn't made a single change. The rollout began quietly. No press, no announcements. Julian didn't want to showcase it yet. He wanted to build it first, properly. Lena came in through the service entrance. Still wore the same boots. Still kept her ID clipped low and out of sight. But her cart had been replaced with a clipboard, and she didn't take orders from anyone in the building. She issued them. The transition wasn't formal. It was felt. She never used a podium. She used floor space. She didn't schedule trainings. She dropped into departments and staged drills on the spot. When security fumbled protocol during a fake breach, she made them run it again. When accounting skipped the AED tutorial, she ran the demo right on the break room floor while their lunch microwaved. No one rolled their eyes twice. On a Tuesday morning, Julian stepped into the HR office. Nadia was already seated, going over onboarding reports. "Did you approve the new med supply requisition?" he asked. "I did." "Was that budgeted?" "It is now." He raised an eyebrow. "You adjusted budget lines without asking?" "I did," she said again, unbothered. "You told me to back her." Julian paused. Nadia looked up. "She's not just teaching people how to react. She's teaching them how to see. Things they never saw before. Exit signs, body language, gaps in policy. It's rewiring the culture." "She's changing the building," Julian murmured. "No," Nadia said. "She's restoring it." Lena didn't talk about her past, but people noticed things. The way she scanned a room the second she walked in. The way she aligned chairs before safety briefings. 3 fingers apart, uniform spacing, subconscious habit. The way she asked questions like, "What would you do if the floor you're on goes dark and the elevators lock? What's your first move if your coworker collapses and bites down on his tongue? What do you do if someone starts crying during an earthquake drill?" These weren't theoretical. These were lived-in instructions. And it showed. That week, Eli returned to the building for the first time. His presence wasn't announced, but word spread fast. He walked slowly, still healing, still unsure of the space that had once felt like his father's world. Sterile, demanding, cold. Lena found him by the service elevator, hands jammed in his hoodie pocket, staring at the back wall like it might explain something. "You remember where the lobby is?" she asked quietly. Eli smiled faintly. "I was hoping you'd show up. I've been known to appear when needed." They stood there for a moment, saying nothing. Then he asked, "Why'd you help me?" Lena didn't hesitate. "Because you looked like you'd been carrying something too heavy for too long," he nodded. "You reminded me of someone," she added. "Your son?" This time she did pause. "Yeah," Eli shifted. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." "You didn't know," he kicked the floor lightly with his sneaker. "My dad's trying. I think he's going to fail sometimes." "I know. But he's trying," she repeated, "and that counts for more than it used to." Eli looked up at her. "You're still a janitor?" "I'm still Lena." The title changes. The reasons don't. He smiled wider. Then he reached into his backpack and pulled something out. Her hoodie, cleaned, folded, the seams still damp. "I didn't want to keep it." She took it gently. "I figured you might need it again," he said. Later that day, Julian entered the wellness training room, expecting to find Lena alone. Instead, he found half the finance team sitting in folding chairs, watching her draw evacuation routes on a whiteboard. No screens, just diagrams and markers. When she finished, she handed out printed checklists. No one moved, no one complained. Julian waited until she dismissed them. When the room was empty, he stepped forward. "You train them," he said. "I'm training all of them." He nodded. "Your idea's working. It's not mine." He tilted his head. "It's theirs. They're owning it. That's why it'll last longer than any emergency." Julian looked around the room. "Can I ask something?" She gave a small nod. "If this works, if we roll this to our other locations, regional offices, overseas, would you run it?" "No," he blinked. "Why not?" "Because you don't need me everywhere." "You need someone like me everywhere." Julian's expression shifted, slowly. "And those people," she continued, "they don't need a paycheck to show up. They need permission and leadership that listens when the quiet ones speak." He looked down at his hands, then at her. "I'm trying. I know." That night, Lena walked home beneath a light rain, hoodie pulled tight around her shoulders. She didn't check the sky. She didn't rush. She liked the cold now. It reminded her she was still here. Not just alive, present, and she hadn't felt that in years. The next week, the conference call system crashed during a simulated power outage drill. It wasn't part of Lena's original plan, but she didn't pause. She stepped into the operations room, scanned the whiteboards, and called out, "Paper protocols now!" Emergency notebooks should already be distributed by Department A, few blank stares. One manager looked like she might argue. Lena raised an eyebrow. "You said every system had a manual fallback," the manager muttered, grabbing her folder. Lena nodded. "And this is why." Julian, standing just inside the door, watched silently as 30 staff members began moving in coordinated pairs, relaying building floor maps, medical points, and check-in lists by clipboard. All of it organized by Lena. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. Later that afternoon, she found a package sitting on her desk in the temporary logistics office they'd given her. Plain cardboard. No return label. She opened it slowly, expecting maybe another round of unsolicited welcome to corporate merchandise. Instead, inside lay a battered manila folder marked St. Clair's Emergency Resignation Packet. L. Marlowe. A post-it was stuck on top in handwriting she recognized. "Nadia, you never signed it. Thought you might want to decide that now. For real." Lena sat back in the chair and stared at the folder for a long moment. Then she tucked it inside a drawer and left it there. At the same time, Across the city, Eli sat in his therapist's office. It was his third session. He didn't like being there, but he didn't hate it anymore either. It helped that the woman didn't ask things like, "How did that make you feel?" right away. Instead, today, she had asked something different. "What does safety look like to you?" He thought for a while, staring at the corner of the rug, twisting a bracelet around his wrist. Then he said, "A mop bucket." The therapist didn't flinch. "Tell me more." She had it with her. When I collapsed, she caught me before I hit the floor. Then she used the bucket like it was a shield, kept everyone else back. No one yelled after that. The therapist nodded slowly. She didn't act scared. Not once Julian hadn't spoken to Lena in 3 days. Not because of tension, because he was thinking. For the first time in his professional life, he felt outpaced by someone who didn't have a title, didn't want a corner office, and didn't care who was watching. She had no interest in empire, just integrity. And he didn't know what to do with that until he did. On Thursday morning, Lena entered the elevator lobby and froze. Someone had taken down the company's standard poster about quarterly goals and replaced it with a new wall-sized bulletin. Across the top, in bold sans serif, it read, "Floor Response Captains, Internal Emergency Leaders." There were 12 names listed underneath, one for each floor. All of them were janitorial staff, security, maintenance, reception, people who'd never once set foot in a boardroom. Next to each name was a list of new duties, training certifications in progress, and time slots for open office hours. Beside the list hung small black and white portraits, casual shots, faces caught mid-laugh, mid-work, mid-life. At the bottom was a single line, "Because readiness belongs to everyone." Lena didn't smile. She just nodded once. Julian was already waiting for her in the training room. She walked in, dropped her bag by the supply cart-turned desk, and said, "You finally did it." "Did what?" "You stopped trying to control the narrative." Julian chuckled. "You think I'm that calculating?" "I know you are. But this was something else. This was trust. I learned from someone good." She gave him a sidelong look. "You want to thank you?" "I want your opinion." She sat down across from him. "I'm planning a full rollout," he said, "to every regional building. But I want the core staff trained here. First wave, at this location. I want them to see what real response looks like." "You want me to train them personally?" "No. I want your captains." To Lena, blinked. Julian added, "You built them. You taught them. They're ready." She leaned back. "You really want receptionists leading crisis teams?" "I want people who know the floor better than anyone else. I want trust at ground level." "That's what you taught me." She didn't answer right away. Then, "If I agree, there are conditions." Julian raised his eyebrows. "Let's hear them." "No press. No internal promotions campaign. No signature memos. I won't let you turn this into a PR stunt." "Agreed. And if any executive tries to override a floor captain during a drill or real emergency, they're suspended." Julian nodded slowly. "Agreed." "Last condition," she said. "Every floor captain gets hazard pay." Julian blinked. Then he grinned. "You're tougher than my general counsel. I've been in worse rooms." That evening, Lena stood on the rooftop of the building, watching the sun drop behind the skyline. Nadia joined her, handing over 2 paper cups of vending machine coffee. "I heard about the captains," she said. "You helped make it happen." "I just gave you the folder," Nadia replied. "You filled in the rest." Lena took a sip. "They'll do fine. Better than fine." "I know." The wind kicked up, tugging at Lena's sleeves. For a moment, she just stood there, breathing in the cold. "You think you're staying this time?" Nadia asked. Lena didn't answer right away. Then, I think I stopped running. The storm hit at 2:13 p.m. A freak downpour slammed into the city's power grid, cutting off half the downtown core, including Stratton Technologies' primary campus. No warning, no countdown. The power dropped mid-meeting. Elevators froze between floors. Wi-Fi died. Backup generators flickered once, then failed. And somewhere between the outage and the rising wind, an emergency dispatch line got jammed with false alarms from other offices, which meant that when the real call came through, nobody was answering. Lena had been leading a training on floor 8 when the lights cut. The second the buzz dropped and silence surged in, she knew it wasn't a drill. She didn't wait for a signal. She stood up, grabbed the nearest whiteboard marker, and wrote in thick block letters, "Power down. Follow vocal instruction only." Captain stepped forward. A low murmur rolled through the room. "No phones," she said. "No apps. No building systems. We're going manual, just like we practiced the captains, maintenance, reception. 2 security guards and a janitor moved instantly to their posts. Not a single executive in the room gave an objection. Not after the fire drill. Not after the last training. Not after Lena Marlowe had proved she was the one person who never panicked. On floor 6, a short circuit triggered a secondary failure, locking the north stairwell behind a fire suppression barrier. 2 employees were trapped. Lena didn't even wait for a report to reach her. She'd already anticipated which walls housed the old switch boxes from the building's original layout. She grabbed a manual crank from the emergency supply locker, one she'd insisted every floor keep stocked, and ran down 2 levels with a captain at her heels. They reached the barrier just as one of the women inside started coughing. "Carbon filtering is failing," Lena muttered. She handed the captain a wedge. "Hold this open the second the door gives. Get them out, one at a time. No rushing. Copy." Lena slammed the crank into the access panel and began turning. 1 rotation. 2. Metal groaned like a sleeping giant. She didn't stop. Up on 12, Julian stood in a dark hallway, lit only by red emergency beacons. No entourage, no assistant, just him. He had instinctively gone to the executive floor to check on the team. But when he got there, he found something he hadn't expected. It was quiet, orderly, coordinated. A floor captain, a woman from copy services, was calmly guiding 3 senior analysts into the stairwell. She held a flashlight between her shoulder and cheek while reading from a laminated emergency binder. "Down 2 flights, then switch to west stairs. Medical checkpoint is on 5. Julian stood still for a moment, watching. The floor captain glanced at him. "You need an escort, Mr. Stratton?" He almost smiled. "No. I'll follow your lead." By the time Lena opened the sealed stairwell and got the 2 trapped employees into fresh air, her arms were trembling from exertion. But her voice was steady. "Vitals?" she asked. One nodded. "Breathing normal. Dizzy sit? Head between knees. Short breaths? You're not passing out on my shift." Someone handed her a bottle of water. She didn't look to see who. On floor 10, a visiting regional director demanded that the fire escape be used for faster evacuation. A floor captain, a soft-spoken janitor named Mitch, stood his ground. "That exit's exposed to wind shear. I won't open it. I outrank you." "Not in this situation, you don't," Mitch replied. And behind him, 3 staffers stepped forward and nodded. That door stayed closed. It took 42 minutes to clear the building, using nothing but human coordination, handwritten maps, and voices. No tech, no screens, no broadcast intercom. Just the people Lena had trained. When the power came back on at 3:18 p.m., the only things running smoother than the elevators were the conversations unfolding on every floor. People comparing notes, checking in, comforting each other, moving with purpose. And in every one of those small clusters, someone mentioned her name. Julian found Lena near the supply dock, rinsing grime off her hands with bottled water and a frayed towel. "You need to rest," he said. "I will." He hesitated. "How'd you know where the crank was?" "I read the old blueprints 3 weeks ago." Most buildings this old still keep physical infrastructure layered behind the smart tech. He looked at her for a long moment. "I've never seen this place hold together like that." "It wasn't the building," she said, wringing out the towel. "It was the people. You just finally stopped talking over them. You built something permanent here, Lena." "No," she corrected. "We did." He nodded, but then she added, "You should still be prepared to lose it." He frowned. "Why?" "Because people will notice. Other companies, other buildings, they'll want it too. And they'll poach your captains if you don't value them." He absorbed the warning without defensiveness. "Then I'll raise their pay," he said, "and give them titles no one can take." She gave him a tired nod. "I'll send that to the board tonight." "Do it before the headlines hit," Lena said. He blinked. "Headlines? They always come after a power outage. The difference now is we don't have to spin the story. We just have to tell it right." By the next morning, the story had broken. Not from Stratton Technologies, from a viral post written by a staff intern. It opened with, "The power went out. The CEO was stuck on the top floor, but a janitor let us out." And that was all it took. 12 hours later, the post had over 3 million views, 15,000 comments, and was trending in every corporate leadership forum from Forbes to Reddit. The photo attached showed Lena, backlit by the red glow of a stairwell beacon, sleeves rolled up, jaw set, dirt streaked across one cheek. She wasn't posing. She wasn't even aware it had been taken. And that was why people believed it. Julian's phone didn't stop buzzing. PR firms, news syndicates, think tanks, leadership coaches wanting statements, interviews, seminars. The building's investor group even suggested a new initiative, the Marlowe Standard. He told them to shut it down. "This isn't a mascot campaign," he said sharply. "We don't brand people who saved us." But that didn't stop the headlines. When tech fails, people lead. The woman who carried a building, from mop to mission control, the crisis that changed everything. Why every CEO needs a janitor like this one. Julian winced at that last one. It reduced everything she was to the title she wore. And she deserved more than that. Lena was in the logistics room when Nadia brought her the newspaper. "Your front page." Lena glanced at it, then went back to packing first aid kits. "You knew this would happen," Nadia said. "I warned him." "Not about the press." "About you becoming the story?" Lena didn't reply. "You okay with it?" "No," she said, taping down a box, "but I'll survive it." That afternoon, Julian stood at the head of the monthly board meeting table. He didn't sit. He placed a single folder on the table, then addressed them without slides. "As of today, we are expanding the Emergency Floor Leadership Program to every satellite office. All captains will receive full-time employment status, hazard pay, and medical benefits equal to any Executive A." Hand went up. "Julian, the press is already painting this as a leadership failure." "It was a failure," he said. "Mine. I built a company that relied on infrastructure over instinct, systems over people. And when those systems failed, the only reason we came through intact is because one woman knew how to lead with nothing but a map, her voice, and a tool belt." He let that sit. Another executive shifted. "Are we making her the face of this?" Julian's eyes narrowed. "We're making her the standard." Someone scoffed. "She didn't even have a job title until last week." Julian leaned forward. She didn't need one to save this company. 3 floors down, Lena was wrapping a sprain on a delivery clerk who had tripped over a loose mat near the loading dock. Her touch was firm but careful, every movement precise. "You could have let the med team do this," the clerk muttered. "They're busy. I mean, you're kinda important now." Lena finished the wrap and met his eyes. "No more than I was last week." He smiled sheepishly. "They say you're running the next drill citywide." "I am." "What made you come back?" he asked quietly. Lena stood. "The same thing that made you show up for work during a thunderstorm." He blinked. She gave a soft shrug. "You care?" "That's enough." The Stratton Auditorium filled faster than it had for any quarterly earnings report. The company-wide debrief had been scheduled as a formal recap of the outage response. But word had spread that Julian and Lena would be speaking together. That had never happened before. The lights dimmed. Employees filled the aisle, stairwells, even leaned along the walls. Julian stepped up to the podium first. He didn't read from notes. "I've spoken to this company many times, from this very stage. And most of those times, I talked about innovation, scaling, market strategy, but none of that saved us last week." He paused. "One person did." Murmurs rolled through the crowd. Julian continued. "And she didn't do it with algorithms or titles. She did it with skill and heart, and a level of courage I've never seen before." He stepped back. Lena didn't take the podium. She stepped forward, hands in her jacket pockets, and looked out across the room like she was scanning a triage center. "I'm not a speaker," she said plainly. "I'm not your hero. I'm not your leader. I'm a floor captain. And that's a job that used to be invisible silence. But if this week taught us anything, it's that the quiet roles matter. That you don't need a title to lead. You just need to show up for each other, for the building, for the people who share your oxygen." A pause. Then she said, "I didn't save you. You saved yourselves. I just reminded you how no applause. Not at first. Then one person stood. Then 5. Then the room exploded. Not because she asked for it, because they knew it was true." Up in the observation deck, Eli stood with Nadia, watching the auditorium below. He leaned against the glass and whispered, "She doesn't like it." "She doesn't need to," Nadia said. "She earned it." Eli glanced sideways. "She ever talk about her son?" Nadia nodded once. "She doesn't have to. He's in everything she does." Eli didn't speak again. He just watched as Lena walked off stage and didn't look back. Lena didn't go back to her office after the auditorium cleared. She didn't speak to the press lined up at the doors, didn't wave, didn't linger. She took the stairs to the rooftop, her usual place when the world got too loud. The wind was sharp that afternoon. Not enough to sting, but enough to remind her that quiet still existed above the chaos. She sat on the concrete ledge, knees up, arms resting across them, and watched the buildings blink against a pale sky. Below her, a city that had once left her behind now carried her name in its headlines. She hated it because her name was never the point. Julian found her an hour later. He didn't speak at first, just stood beside her, hands in his coat pockets, scanning the skyline like it might tell him what to say. Lena didn't look at him. "You did well," he said. "I did what I was trained to do. You did more than that." She didn't answer. He hesitated, then said, "We've had offers from the mayor's office. Requests to consult on city infrastructure, emergency playbooks, municipal risk management." She exhaled slowly. "Of course you have. I told them we'd consider it, but only if you lead it." Now she did look at him. "I'm not interested in politics. This isn't politics. It's people. That's what they all say." Julian didn't argue. He just nodded once. Then, I think it's time we give you something official. Not a title. Something real. Something permanent. You mean a contract? No, he said. I mean a department. That surprised her. A permanent emergency leadership division, Julian continued. Not under HR. Not buried in logistics. Standalone. Floor captains, trauma training, crisis policy, wellness oversight. A division led by someone who understands what's at stake. Lena stared at him for a long time. You're serious. As serious as you were when you told me this place would fall apart without human hands. She didn't reply. I won't pressure you, he said. I just want you to know it's yours if you want it. Then he turned and walked away. Lena stayed. She always stayed longer than she needed to. Eli came to see her the next morning. He didn't text first, didn't call. He just showed up in the lobby, hair still damp from the rain, hoodie sleeves too long, shoulders no longer weighed down like before. She met him by the bench outside the east entrance, same bench he'd collapsed near weeks ago. You look taller, she said. I think I just feel lighter. Better? Working on it, she nodded. I saw your speech, he said. I didn't write one. That's why it worked. He reached into his backpack and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. I made something, he said. For you. Lena raised an eyebrow. He unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a simple wooden nameplate, sanded edges, letters carved by hand, imperfect but sincere. Director, Emergency Leadership Division. Below it, smaller, Lena Marlowe. I know you don't like titles, Eli said, but I figured if it came from me, maybe you'd keep it. Lena didn't speak for a moment. Then she reached out and took the nameplate gently, holding it with both hands like it might vanish. You made this? He nodded. Woodshop. Therapy project. It's good. Not perfect. Neither am I, she said, but still needed. Julian held the meeting that afternoon. No cameras, no shareholders, just his executive staff and floor captains. Equal chairs, equal voices. This isn't a restructure, he told them. It's a reinforcement. He turned to Lena. She stood, quiet, solid. No speech, no fanfare. She simply began assigning new response protocols by department. Clear, actionable, tactical, and no one interrupted. When she finished, she turned to Julian and said, Next time, we start with the people. Not the software, he smiled. Understood. She left the room without a backward glance, but everyone watched her go. That night, Lena went home and opened the drawer she hadn't touched in weeks. Inside was the resignation file from St. Clair's, still unsigned. She pulled it out, looked at the line where her name was supposed to go. Then, with calm fingers, she folded it once, then again, and slid it into the trash. Some closures didn't need ceremony, only decision. Across the city, a middle school science teacher read aloud from a news article titled, How One Woman Rebuilt a Corporate Culture with Grit and Grace. A girl in the front row raised her hand and said, That's what I want to be when I grow up. The teacher smiled. A CEO? The girl shook her head. No, someone like her. On the 21st floor of Stratton Technologies, a new plaque was affixed outside a door that didn't used to exist. It read, Emergency Leadership Division, because real systems start with real people. And just inside, behind a desk made of salvaged field tables and supply crates, sat a single wooden nameplate. Nothing fancy, just carved words. But it was the only thing in the room polished every morning. The rain had stopped by morning, but the city felt quieter than usual. Lena stood just outside the Stratton building, sipping black coffee from a paper cup, her gaze drifting toward the curb where Eli had first collapsed. The sidewalk had been pressure washed a week ago, but she could still see the outline of her mop bucket in her memory. Still hear the silence that followed his fall. Still feel the weight of a boy who hadn't spoken a word, but had asked for help simply by collapsing where someone might care. She'd been that kind of quiet once too. And now? Now she was anything but quiet. Inside the building, the new recruits had begun to arrive. They weren't polished. They didn't come in suits. Most wore work boots and carried notepads with corners, dog-eared from years of real experience. Security officers, night custodians, front desk attendants, cafeteria leads. The kind of people who knew how to evacuate a floor before the alarm finished blaring. The kind who knew where the defibrillators were because they'd installed them. The kind of people Lena had always believed in. And now, they believed in themselves. Eli stepped into the training room mid-morning. He no longer hovered near the door like an outsider. He walked to Lena's desk, placed a folder down, and said, "Survey feedback from last week's pilot drills. 92% approval. Some captains are requesting cross-training on trauma stress management." Lena looked up at him, impressed. "You run numbers now?" "I don't hate them anymore," he replied, smiling. "That's dangerous," she teased. "I figured if I'm going to be around, I should carry more than a last name." Lena's expression shifted. Not surprise, not pride, just a quiet, complete kind of trust. The emergency kits on every floor had been redesigned, smaller, smarter, color-coded. Each one now included a laminated card at the top in plain block font. "If you are holding this, you are enough. Breathe, think, act, save who you can, then rest." Lena hadn't signed her name to it. She didn't need to. They all knew where it came from. Later that week, Lena took the afternoon off. First time in a year. She didn't go home. She took a bus to a small park on the city's east side, where the trees were older than the street signs, and the benches creaked with memory. She walked until she reached a weathered memorial stone under a thick oak. The nameplate had faded, but she didn't need to read it. She sat. She opened a pocket-sized journal, the kind she hadn't touched since before Ben died. And she wrote 3 lines. "You were the reason I ran. You are the reason I stopped. And you are the reason they're ready now." She closed the journal and set it down beside her for a while, just to let it breathe. That night, Julian sent her an email. Subject: "Still no title for what you do. Body. But I've stopped trying to name it. Whatever it is, it's working. And if you ever want to disappear again, just know, this time, we'll come looking." Attached was a photo, Eli, standing with the new floor captains. He was holding the emergency handbook Lena had created. The caption read, "It's not about what we're trained to do. It's about who we're trained to protect." The next morning, Lena returned to work. She passed a new hire on her way in, nervous, holding a checklist, glancing at signs like they were in a different language. Lena stopped, handed him a copy of the floor map, and pointed to the red circles marked safe zones. "Don't memorize the routes," she said. The kid blinked. "No. Memorize the faces. They're who you're there for." Back on the top floor, someone had replaced the company mission statement in the hallway glass frame. The old one had been written by a consultant. This one, it was handwritten. "Start with the floor. Build upward. Remember the quiet ones were always ready." There was no signature, but everyone who walked past paused because they knew. She was just a single mom janitor when this started, with a mop bucket, a worn hoodie, and a habit of noticing things no one else did. But when the son of a CEO collapsed at her feet, she didn't just save him. She changed what leadership looked like. And she made sure no one would ever forget where real strength begins. Subscribe, and don't miss our next story. Mom, Can We Keep Him? A single mom janitor's daughter. said about the stranger who changed everything? Trust me, you'll feel it. And tell me in the comments, what injustice should we tackle next?